The most beautiful examples of what humanity has achieved, I think, are a testament to the existence of worlds outside that which we can see and experience. The necessity of dealing with a certain kind of physical reality is complicated, by a disability, because it adds dimensions to that physical reality which are not necessarily familiar to a lot of people. I'm in some sort of no man's land, I think, between science and religion.
What we have here is the making of a perfect storm, a convergence of forces of untold intensity. For when a thoughtful and engaged audience, a roll up your sleeves kind of audience, a discerning and working audience, when that kind of audience meets artists who are uncorked and unruly, artists who make no apologies and take no prisoners, artists who have something profoundly old and yet very new to say, when that kind of audience meets that kind of artist, the encounter will inevitably spiral out in great waves of paradigm-shifting consequence.
But why is it so dark in here? There should be some light creeping in here from something. Damn. You did it again. Forgot you're blind. I came to recognize the overwhelming distraction that sight had been. I never noticed that sound moves the way it does or feels the way it does. And what about this pulse, this vibration that flows from all things? Coming to terms with my blindness was a challenge. Coming to terms with other people's perceptions of it was something else. I'm headed home after classes one day, and a man approaches me at the bus stop. He says, give me your hand, brother. Praise the Lord. Being courteous, I shake the man's hand. The man grips my hand, slaps his free hand over my eyes, pulls my head back, shouts, look to the heavens, brother. Let the power of Jesus surge through your soul. I had to rip his hands from my face. Get your fucking hands off of me. Your blindness blinds me, brother. Your blindness blinds us all. You must believe. Let Jesus into your heart and be healed. And the man goes on down the street ranting about how my condition is an offense to Christians everywhere.
Just the fact of a person with a disability getting up on stage, for example, and maybe especially as a dancer, where historically people with disabilities have not been considered dancers in the classical sense. And that in itself, just their presence, I think, is a bit of a political statement. I think it really speaks to people and conveys that message that we're all, just human beings, and there's different ways of being human, and it's all okay. And it's not a tragedy necessarily, and it's not, a reason for pity and all that stuff historically that gets conveyed through the popular culture and the media.
I wanted equality so bad. But there was a communication issue. I just couldn't hear. That was the problem. When I became an actor, inside, I used humor to transform my pain, because I had so much pain in my heart, and nobody really knows that the pain inside is my humor is about my pain, and I had a lot of things to go through. So that's why I'm real funny. Because really, inside, I have pain, but I want to make it funny, and I want to transform it. And that's why I'm a good comedian.
Everyone has adversity, and everyone has a pain or loss, and it's kind of what you do with it and what you're able to see or gain from that. And if you're able to say, yeah, I have pain, but kind of move on and take it for what it is, then you've got the jackpot there. Because some other people aren't always given the tools or the chance or the opportunities to be able to have that positive spin on their challenges. People have tried to cure my being queer. People have tried to cure my blindness, and mostly unasked for. Car rides that I've hitched, or my school friends' parents. I've never felt a sense that I'm broken or less or unable. I think that my disability, the fact that I don't see very well, sometimes at all, has been a detraction. I think it's made me a richer, more dynamic person who's been able to experience things in different ways. That's helped me learn more about the world, and also helped others learn more about the world. And it's interesting to me how much disability, especially invisible disabilities, I guess, have a coming out discourse similar to being queer. Just in the same way that when you're queer, if you kind of want to have a better sense of ownership of yourself and your own sense of identity and who you are, you kind of need to discuss it, or just to be open about it, and in a casual way too. I think the Salon, is totally doing that. It's providing a way for people to be out and have some pride in themselves, and have a sense that, I'm not alone, I'm not isolated, I can find other people to identify with.
I'm running naked! And I am larger than I could have ever imagined, moving into realms of rapture, pure, beautiful, nothing, bliss. I am later told this was a brief reactive psychosis and the onset of bipolar disorder that runs in my family. I race towards the corner, and then I stop. Something or someone else is watching me. I turn to the left. A girl, say about 7, peers out from behind a porch post, looking at me sort of like how a chimpanzee stares at its audience. I stand aware of 2 worlds at once, ordinary reality and a heavenly realm, both trying to sting me awake. The door opens behind her. A tall, liquid woman emerges. Her mother, I guess. She shoos her daughter into the house, no doubt nervous about the naked lady staring at a child. The woman gingerly moves towards me, warm with a smile. I stand there frozen, literally shivering. It's cold when you're naked, especially when everyone else isn't. She smiles, tilts her head, and asks, "Would you like something to wear?"
So personally, I grew up with a mom struggling with depression. My friends and family, I have friends who have struggled with anxiety, who've had to drop out of school, who have had troubles with jobs, and it's often constructed as their own fault, or something that they need to overcome, or work that they need to do to overcome their own personal hump. And when you start to see it in the context of how few supports there are, or how little understanding there is of how this works, you can see how it's a structural problem, not a personal problem. It is all political. This idea of a meritocracy and all you have to do is work hard enough is bullshit. And my mom knew that, and I know that. And engaging with the disability community, they certainly know that.
When I went into my guidance counselor's office, at 16, 17, and said, I want to go to university. And she told me, no, I don't think that's the place for you. I think community college at best but university never. I understood the class, the gender, and the sexuality part, but I didn't understand the disability part. So for me, that was sort of the piece that I left out, that I didn't really know how to make sense of.
We haven't done a very good job yet, in my view, of figuring out how to accommodate and to learn from people that have learning disabilities of various kinds. Unless we are attentive to access issues, we're going to deliberately or otherwise leave some people out of the educational process. And to me, that's not defensible in a democratic society of the kind that we have here in Canada. At a much different level, I have in my family history some hearing loss. I grew up on a farm in the days before they had all these rules and regulations about hearing protection and other kinds of safety devices that are mandatory these days. And so in my family, both my grandfather and father have some amount of hearing loss. And so that performance hit me in a way that I really didn't expect. It got me thinking a lot about not necessarily the people that are born with disabilities, but the people who become disabled in various ways.
The big thing about a hearing loss is it isolates you from people. And as the world fades away, a hearing impaired person goes into their own little world because they can't hear. The world out there will not stop and allow you to hear what is going on. You can see everyone having a good time, but you can't hear. You can't be part of it. And I know that for the 80 minutes I'm on stage doing my show in front of all these people, I'm like the life of the party. People listening because I'm a finger-picking artist. Not like them noisy bars, some drunk yelling, "Hey, play Johnny Cash! I'll give you $20 if you do Ring of Fire." $20? I fell into a burning ring of fire. Playing my guitar and singing allows me to be connected to people and feel less alone.
I think it's pretty cool because I think, in fact, the kind of stuff that most academics do, and I can say this because I'm one, is, although important and contributing to a new way of thinking and talking about disability, the impact is so indirect and so slow. I mean, I'll write a paper or I'll write a book, and it takes a long time before I get a sense that that's being responded to. Whereas artists and performers, I think, are able to actually reach into someone's ribcage and pull their heart out and do something in an immediate kind of a way. So I envy that.
I couldn't really see someone like Carol. So it took about a year's full of male courage to ask her out, but she said yes, and so we went to a play, and then afterwards we came back to the house where I lived with my housemates. So I was trying to be a hippie, not very successful. No, I was like the kind of hippie. I was the world's only anal retentive hippie. I was like, hey, why don't we get these dishes done before we ride up? And I say that my face is a gift. It is. My true gift is that I've been forced to find my inner beauty.
It's a space that moves past logic and past words, and it moves into a way of communicating in which surprising things happen. And I think Leslie knew that art is unpredictable, and it creates unpredictable and really generative spaces. And that's what's happened with this salon.
Every day is a testimony for me. When people see me on a bus, or when people see me on stage, or when I'm falling, or when I'm at the airport, or whatever. I'm a walking testament. So I don't know any better. I don't know what it was like to walk. I was basically born this way, and I think it makes me look at life completely different than most people, and it makes me listen to music differently, and it makes me raise my children differently. You know what I mean? It makes me a different man.
Thunderous ode. Inside a sinkhole, dark, grasping, restless thunder. thunderous clouds, tumble, no scatter, 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 ska, skoo, scatter, stutter. My words fall apart. Sentences scribbled on a tattered page, tumble from the sky, fall to earth, scatter, ska, skoo, stutter, stuck in my throat. What am I trying to say, after all? A knee fidgets like a moving pendulum. A steel-like ruler in the sky swings to measure the extraordinary. The thunder, the lightning, the bolts that short-circuit and through excess swallow the body into a deep, cavernous sleep without slumber. A waking pulse that disorganizes memory, feeling, and affect come apart. Did I mention the thunder? Ska, scissor. Wish I could scissor out this bleak feeling. To frolic with the geckos, alongside lizards, next to colors which we welcome like modest light. At least art. Against the dark. Tea candles. A different starry night than you imagined, Vincent. Than imagined you, Vincent.
First of all, I owe a great deal to Alana Earl Young and also to Tanya Willard for teaching me along the way that nothing about us without us. The Unruly Salon is a reference not only to the history of Anglos with disabilities, but to all the peoples on this land and territory whose bodies, minds, and lands were colonized in what we've called the process of medicalized colonialism.
So my project was to try and start a dialogue, a conversation with First Nations youth, with First Nation communities around mental health and mental wellness, and trying to come at it from a place of strength while acknowledging a history of trauma, abuse, and injustice that has contributed to the states of mental health in our communities.
Because always somewhere in our families there are people with these experiences that aren't given the space to talk about it in a way that informs humanity and our practices.
It is so easy to forget people, and I think it's the show people who we are and how we feel and all our untidiness that makes that head-to-heart connection and makes it possible to say we're here, we're not going away, listen to our stories, and we'll be back.
This song is called Weight of the Weight, thinking about the heaviness of waiting to die, because so often I would hear these kids dying. So the song was thinking about those kids, thinking about, like, I had one leg, but then I was down to none, and I was like, this could easily be it,
Will you make it safe? Will you make it mine? Will you take another weight off me? I can't carry. I wasn't meant to in this body. I wasn't meant to by the time I'm 30. I won't carry. No, I won't carry the weight of the weight, and I'm sure you're packed for the road. Turn so suddenly to go from so low to so high. Yes, well, I would like that. Will you take another weight off me? Will you take another weight off me? Will you take me the weight of, oh no. the weight of the weight. And I'm sure you're packed for the cold. The weight of the weight. I'm sure you're packed for the road. I'm sure you're packed for the cold. I'm sure you're packed for the road. The declaration of spring, the next day it started snowing. My side is aching, baby kicking to go outside and play in the snow. Declaration of spring, the next day the blossoms were wearing white jackets and swearing they'd never grow. To take off their green armor and bear their pink petticoats of flesh and sea.